Perfect.
So I'm joined today by Jackie Peterson, and she has two adopted little daughters. And Jackie and I actually went to high school together, and we've kept in touch over social media. And I followed her adoption journey over social media, and I just thought it was such an incredible story. And so I wanted her to come on and talk about it today and to just share her experiences and her process of going through adoption and getting her daughters here. So thanks so much for being here, Jackie. I'm excited to talk to you and to learn more about what happened in your adoption and how it all came to be. So my first question is just, what made you pursue adoption in the first place?
So for me, I've always been interested in adoption, just in general. And after I had my first son, so he was 3 months old, I went through an open heart surgery. And at that point, I was kind of told, you know what, the risk is too high to have more children. And so, adoption might be your best route. Well, after so many years had passed and my heart had started to improve. I mean, I still have a pacemaker and everything, but it started to improve to a point where they actually cleared me to have to go ahead and try and get pregnant if I wanted to. And so my husband and I, we started the process of getting pregnant again, and it never happened. And it was 3 long years of just nothing. And so we didn't go through any like fertility treatments or anything like that. We just had this like overwhelming peace that whatever was supposed to happen with our family would happen. And so we decided that it would either be probably foster to adopt. That was one of the routes that we really had thought about, and we still are thinking about, to be honest. And then adoption. But at the same time, we hadn't really gone through the process of actually starting the adoption process until we found our babies. So, and we'll go through that, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love hearing everybody coming into adoption, I think, comes from a little bit of a different route or a different road. And I think that's, some people feel like there's only one way to get there. And really there is so many avenues and ways that you can be brought to adoption and to the past. So I love hearing how different people, and I hear over and over again that they feel inspired. And it's something a lot of people have felt in their past that they would do in their future. It's just something that's kind of always been with them. That's a very common thing that I've been finding out. So again, I hear it with you that it's just something that's been with you for a long time.
Absolutely.
So my next question is, what route did you take to pursue adoption? Did you go through a private agency? Did you know the birth mom? Did you do the active looking? How did that look for you?
So I went the unconventional route, and I think everybody else can say that they went the unconventional route, right? Chad and I had gone through the process of going to an informational meeting at an adoption agency. And I remember walking out of it saying, I am not ready for this right now. And it was before they had cleared me to try and get pregnant again. And so, so at that point, we just kind of put it on the back burner. And then, to be honest, we actually did not go through like a regular channel to find our kids. So I have, just to let you know, I have almost 2-year-old daughter, and she's from Tonga, and that was found through means of family. And again, we were not in the market of saying, hey, we're adopting, everybody keep your eyes out, your ears out. We actually went to Tonga for a family reunion because my dad is from there. And we went there just to go and see where my dad grew up, get to know his culture, get to know the people, and see where, you know, his family home was. And on the second day that we were there, we were introduced to her and the possibility of having her be ours. And it was overwhelmingly like, yes, this is our baby. So we kind of went backwards. So then after that, we had to go through the proper channels of doing all this stuff. Meanwhile, my other daughter, she's not from the same family. She actually is a domestic adoption. So I have an international and a domestic adoption that happened within months of each other. And again, we weren't looking, we weren't up on any website, we didn't have like a blog or anything that we were putting together. The birth mom approached us and asked if we would adopt her baby. And that's a whole different story, I guess. But we were so happy to welcome, and we knew that she was our other baby. So anyway, there's a lot of like little things that have happened throughout the process, but I guess that like it's nothing but divine intervention. If you believe in that or not, I honestly believe that when people say, oh, it's a gut feeling, you follow that and you just go with it, no matter how hard it may be.
For sure. And I went through an agency for both of my kids, although one was totally unexpected. Yep. And the birth mom approached us in that instance as well. Same birth mom for my kids. But it's that same feeling is like you just, it seems like on paper that it shouldn't work out, you know, that nothing, there's so many things that stand in the way, and yet it does. And that to me is such a testament that these kids are meant to be with who they're meant to be with. And it's so beautiful to hear that, you know, you weren't actively looking or anything, and 2 babies came to you in a year. And it's just like so beautiful, such a beautiful experience for you and your family and for us who were watching. So
absolutely.
When you told your family and your friends that you were adopting and that you were going through this process, what was their reaction?
Okay, so this is kind of a part of the story, right? When we went to Tonga, obviously, like I said, we weren't looking, but my mom, on the other hand, was always looking, right? My mom was always kind of our advocate. And so when she heard about this baby, she said, oh my gosh, you need to talk to Jackie, you know? So when I was in Tonga, a lot of my extended family, my siblings and their husbands and kids were actually there. So they were a part of the process, and it meant so much to me. And we all bonded with her and instantly loved her. And it was just so special to have that. Now, our daughter is actually related to me. So she is my first cousin's baby. And the situation was that this was her 4th child, and this child was not with her husband. And so she was giving this baby up to make sure that she could reconcile some things with her husband. And so that was the situation. And so when I came home right from Tonga, first of all, I wasn't going to leave Tonga, but I had to be able to get my home study done, to get all the right paperwork done. And I was devastated leaving. It was one of the hardest things I've ever done, just to know that, okay, I have no control, but this is my baby. Like I would never leave a baby anywhere. But we had to come back, and it just like ripped my heart out. And so when we got home, I was literally sending message after message to all my friends and family that I could, to say, we have a baby, we're going to be adopting a baby. And we FaceTimed my mother-in-law and all my in-laws that weren't there, and they were just crying. We just had so many tears of joy, like from all of them, super supportive. Now my second daughter, we were approached by her mom only 2 weeks prior to me leaving back to Tonga to pick up my daughter. And at that point, we decided not to tell anybody, because we didn't know what we were going to be coming up against. We wanted the time for my first daughter, Kalia, to have her time in the sun and have people acknowledge her and love her, and not have this pending, hey, there's another baby coming, you know. We wanted to give her time. And thankfully we did that. Honestly, I'm so glad we did that, because what was supposed to be a month trip ended up being a 5-month battle between getting her here. And we got home on Halloween, and our other baby was born on Thanksgiving. We didn't even know if we were going to make it, but we finally did. And the battle was it was a really hard fight to bring my daughter home. And so our second daughter was an absolute surprise. we showed up with her in our arms. And everybody was shocked, to say the least. Like, it wasn't like, I mean, like, I think that all of them were trying to wrap their head around, like, you just went through this like horrific, horrendous thing, and now you want another baby? Like, what's happening? And once we finally explained what had happened, all of them were just so ecstatic, and they absolutely love her. And anyway, so that, I don't know if that answered the question, but I mean, that was their reaction. They loved her, and now everybody is just completely in love with both the little girls. So
yes, and I love that. I too had a very good support system, which I felt was huge for me, because it's sometimes in your case, long drawn out process, and there's so many ups and downs along the way, and to know that you have people there who are by your side helping you, and who will love that baby and take care of you and that baby when it comes, was such a big game changer for me. And it gave me strength to go through those things that I didn't think that I could get through on my own. So I was so pleased that people were so supportive. And I love that your family also stepped in when you needed them and was there for you, and continues to be there for you in loving these kids. And that's such a huge blessing to have as an adoptive parent.
Oh, I don't think I would have made it through Tonga without them. I wouldn't have made it through that 5 months without them having the daily calls and support and love. And, you know, they couldn't do much. They all felt so helpless here. Because it is kind of a personal journey when you're taking this with your kids. And when people say they're praying for you, I have to honestly say that I felt it. Like, I absolutely felt sustained from the people around me. And I couldn't have done it without them. So
wonderful. That's awesome. Okay, so now I'd just like you to tell us, so you've kind of already told us some of the story, but can you give us some details about what happened while you were in Tonga, while you were waiting, and kind of some of the things that went through that made that process really tricky?
Yeah, absolutely. So prior to me leaving to Tonga, so we were waiting obviously for all of the paperwork to be done for international adoption, just for like, if somebody was thinking, oh, international is so much easier, it's cheaper. I will tell you, if you're looking for cheap, that this isn't the route to go. It's not.
At any point is the route to go.
At any point, even foster to adopt. Like, the thing is you have to think of it as a true investment, like you would a home, a car, whatever. Like, whatever you're investing your money into, like, these children deserve it. And I know that sometimes it's the money part that gets people caught up. So I will say that international adoption is a whole different beast. And because we were adopting specifically from Tonga, so there's a thing called the Hague countries and the non-Hague countries. And the Hague countries mean that there's an agreement with the US that citizenship is like, once they vetted the child, the child is an orphan to be brought into the US, it's a very simple, easy process. They will grant visas, they'll grant whatever needs to happen, because they have that agreement between the two countries. Tonga is not. And so you have to apply for visas. You have to go through a different process, right? And you just have to show proof that this child truly is a quote unquote orphan. Again, if you're outside of the US, you have to adopt orphans. Like, that's just how it is. They can't have any other options to be adopted in that country for them to be able to come to the US. That's been my experience, and that's what I've been told, and that's what we have seen. And I feel like that's very true. So with this being said, with my cousin, she had never taken care of my daughter Kalia much after she was born. Because of just the tricky situation of being a mom of 3 other kids and a wife of somebody else that wasn't the father of that child. And so my daughter, actually, before we had got there, by the time that she was 3 months, she had been passed around to several different families and people. And it broke my heart, because I I couldn't imagine having such a beautiful little thing like be passed around like, you know, like nothing, right? And so, so throughout the process, so we got home in January, the 1st of January, and I couldn't leave until June. So it took us 6 full months to get through that whole entire visa, home and like home. I'm saying home inspection because
Yeah.
it's
Study.
my filter brain. Home study. Sorry, a home study done, and so after everything was approved, finally I was able to go, but I could not leave the country to go there until all of those things were in place. That was just one of the requirements. So I waited. Finally, 2 weeks prior to me going to Tonga, and that is when we were approached by our youngest daughter, Camille, her mom, to adopt. We felt instantly the connection, and we said, yes, we'll start this process. So we started the process for our second adoption, domestic adoption, right before I left. Well, around the exact same time that we had started the process, already paid our money down, started getting the paperwork together, we started getting some funny feedback from Tonga saying, hey, the mother has taken the baby, and you know, we had put her in the care of somebody else, not the mother, and the mother has taken the baby, or she takes her during this time, and there was some things that were confusing, and we didn't know exactly what was going on. We just knew I had to get there as soon as possible. So I jumped on a flight, went to Tonga, and once I got there, I connected with my cousin who had my baby, and she said, I'll meet you right now at the market. If you just come, I will give you the baby. And I said, awesome. So we went to the market, we met up with her, and she literally gave us my daughter with the clothes on her back, with nothing else, and was just like, okay, there you go. Like, I don't have anything else. And I said, well, why don't you? I was like, that's okay, that's fine, not a big deal. We'll go buy some other stuff, whatever. And she proceeded to tell us, saying, yeah, I snuck away for a few minutes from my husband. He really wants the baby, and he doesn't want you to take the baby. And I said, whoa. I said, this is not what we came here for. I said, that wasn't the agreement. And I said, I'm not here to take a baby. You know, I said, what do you want? She said, no, I want the baby to go with you. And I said, well, you're the biological mother. You have to decide. And she said, I want the baby to go with you. And I said, okay, that's good to know. And she said, I'll smooth it over with my husband. And I said, okay. So she then left. And 3 days later, she showed up at my hotel room with the police and said that I had kidnapped the baby, and that this baby was hers and her husband's, and so they took the baby. I didn't know my rights. It was a serious thing. It was probably the hardest thing that I've ever gone through, because they literally took the baby from me, and I just cried. I literally it was one of the hardest things. Anyway, so they took the baby and left at that point. And again, I didn't know my rights. I didn't know how things work in Tonga. I don't know, I didn't know what to expect. So I immediately went to a lawyer and said, what are my rights? And she said, whoa, she said, that's illegal. They can't take a baby from you. Like, you have an agreement of adoption. That's illegal. And I said, okay, then I don't know what's going on. I don't know how to do this. And so we went through the process, come to find out that the police officer that took the baby was actually, he was outside of his rights, and he did that illegally, and he's now serving time for it. We had to press charges against him. And then the next thing is just, we had found out that the baby was in danger. Like, she was in harm's way of abuse. And it was mainly because of the father, the stepfather, so the husband. Anyway, so this is a really long story, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to make
No,
it like
no, you're good.
but the big thing is, you know, when we started to find out what our rights were and what was right, what was wrong, what was expected, and what they could and couldn't do, the truth is the baby she was in danger of being abused and being neglected, and she had already, I guess, experienced some abuse before I didn't even know about, but stories started coming up. And so I spent another month fighting to get her removed from that home. I finally resolved myself to the point that I said, you know, I was like, you know what, if I don't have this baby, I'm going to do everything I can to protect her and get her out of that home, because she cannot grow up there. And I resolved the fact that I wasn't going to take her home, even though I knew deep down that was my child. It was one of the hardest things to just keep going. But we finally went in. We went with a lawyer. We started to, you know, press charges. And the day that we were going to go file for custody of the baby, we had my husband fly in, because we wanted to show how serious we were, that not just me, like a woman is just waiting for a baby. It was a couple that was presenting their case. And we had enough evidence to show that this baby was not meant to be in their custody. And we went to go file the paperwork, and like, it just so happened to be lunchtime. So everything was closed up at the government offices. So we decided to walk around the corner to a cafe. As we walked around the corner, there was my cousin, the mother of the baby, sitting in the street. And I was just like caught off guard. And I said, Evelyn, like, what is happening? I'm not sure, because she wouldn't answer my phone calls. But what we understood is that the husband was controlling any communication to her. So anybody coming to the home, he was there and he spoke for her. So it was a very controlling situation. And she just broke down and cried and said, I thought that he would love her like I wanted him to, and it's not the right thing. I don't want him to have her. I need you to take the baby. And I said, well, how do we get her? She said, if you come with me right now, I will give you the baby. This is after a whole month of like building a case and testimonies and getting ready to file and bringing my husband in. And it was just nuts. And I said, okay, let's go. And so we dropped her off at the home. We had to park down the road because we didn't want the husband to be suspectful. And, you know, a few minutes later, here comes my cousin running with the baby in her arms and down the street. And she gets in our car and she says, run, like, go. So we left. And from that day on, we had custody of her, which was huge. So because that part happened, because there was claim or to show that the baby was still, I guess, had options of being adopted there, it held up the process of us being able to get that orphan status. And so we had to go through the proper channels of getting orphan status. We finally finished everything in Tonga. Chad went back to the US, and because we still have our son there, and we had to finish our other paperwork and everything for our other daughter. And then we finished it up in Tonga. That took us 3 months in Tonga. And then we went over to Fiji, where my husband actually flew back in for the final approval of the adoption in Tonga. And then we flew over to Fiji together. And then he left again because he had to go back. And so we were waiting for the visa, and we thought, okay, well, now that we have the orphan status, we're great. Well, it wasn't as clear cut as we thought it was going to be. So it took us an additional 2 months in Fiji for us to just wait on the US to say, yes, you have orphan status. We had to keep submitting more documentation to give proof of it. And finally we got the okay. And I will say this, throughout this process, I'm talking to the birth mom of our other child, and she's saying, I just want you to be here. I want to get to know you more. And it broke my heart not being there for the process of being able to be there for like the ultrasound and to spend time with her and to like really bond with her, because at the end of the day, I want my child to have a relationship with her biological mother. And even my daughter from Tonga, to be honest, we still have a great relationship with her mom now, understanding victims of abuse. It's a whole different world. And, but she knows that she's loved and still wanted, but understands that, I mean, we're going to keep her understanding that the circumstances were not right for her, you know? Anyway, this is a crazy long story. I know. So, 2 weeks before I had left, Fiji, I actually had to come home for the home study, because I had to physically be there for our domestic, adoption. So I came home for 3 days for that to happen. And while I was home, it was so hard because I couldn't bring my daughter. She was in Fiji with a good friend of mine. Thank goodness I made an incredible mom that also is there because of adoption. She's been there for 2.5 years now. She's been living in Fiji for 2.5 years, and she still has no promise of when they're going to be home. And so, but I left Kalia there and I came home, and I broke down because I knew I couldn't leave my son again. I'd been gone for almost 5 months from him. And so I brought him back with me to Fiji for the final approval of everything. So I brought him back, and he was part of the process. He had time to bond with Kalia. He had time to be a part of the process of bringing her home and having that sense of ownership of being the brother and the protector. And I loved it because for me, it was so important for him to feel important in this process. And the fact that I was gone for so long, I didn't want him to think that I only cared about the one child, you know? And so it was such a beautiful transition for us to be able to make that, going home. And so we made a home just in time, and just in time for us to be here for our other baby. And that process went so smoothly. I couldn't have asked for a better process, but even to this day, me and the birth mom of my daughter, Camille, the younger one, we text throughout the weeks. We are constantly in communication because she's just a good friend, and I love her, and we see eye to eye. So.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that. One of my next questions was about your openness, and you've already answered that. For those of you who don't know, there are levels of openness you can have in adoption. Open is that you're just open. You're free to communicate back and forth with the birth mom, even the birth family sometimes, and your kids can communicate together. And then there's semi-open, which is you send letters or pictures, but it's kind of, there's a liaison there, usually the agency or a third party that will be the liaison between the two. And then there's closed, which is there's no contact between the birth parents, family, and the child. And so we have a semi-open adoption with our kids. Their birth mom is in Iowa, and that is what she wanted. And we were totally fine to do any level of openness that she felt comfortable with. But I want you to speak a little bit about that level of openness and how you feel like that is going to help your children as they start to age. They're really young right now, but as they start to age, knowing that they can, you know, communicate or talk with their birth moms, and that they have places that they can go to for answers on their regard.
You know, the reason why I felt so okay with open adoption, I think it's because it started with a family member, right? And even through like all the horrendous things that had happened while we were there, the pain and the hard things that we went through, at the end of the day, I love the fact that my child understands where their roots are from. I don't think it'll change anything. I don't think it'll make any difference on how she loves me or understands how much I love her. I have confidence in that because of just who I want to help, raise, I guess. And I want my children to know that they were never not wanted, and that they were always loved, and they were loved enough that people understood their limitations, and that their birth parents are not bad people, and that they absolutely had their best interest at heart because they couldn't give them the life that we could give them. And so our adopted mom that I'm super close with, that is here in the US, she lives in Wyoming. She actually has 11 children. So my daughter has 10 half siblings, and they have varying levels of openness with her other adoptions that she's given. And she's kept 3 of her children, so 8 of them are outside of her home and adopted out. And the thing is I want my daughter to know who those people are, and I've received all their information. Does that make sense? So I don't want this to be a reason for my children to feel lost or in insecurity of theirs because they just don't know the circumstances. I want them to fully embrace it and know that they can be completely a part of their lives, and I'm not jealous of it. I want them to feel loved, and I want them to have more people, and I won't let them, I don't plan on having them influence my child as a parent. I will say that. I don't want them to, be in their life as if they are a parent. But I do want them to have respect and love and gratitude for them. And I think that's the only way it can happen is if they actually know them and have that relationship.
Yeah. And something that I've learned in this process, in my own process, is that love is expansive. And I used to feel like, there's only so much love to go around. And when I was in the hospital with my oldest son and her birth mom was leaving, I was broken. I was so broken for her. This woman who I had just met and not known very well, who gave me the world, and I loved her so, so much. And I felt so brokenhearted for her. And of course I was so ecstatic for myself, but I was so sad for her. And I realized that there is love to go around. There's enough love to go around for everyone, and that it is expansive. And that because your children love you does not mean that your children cannot love their birth mother, or because their children love their birth mother does not mean that they cannot love you. And I love that that you've experienced some of those same things, and that you want, really what we want is what's best for our children and what will help them to come to terms with how they came to be with us, and that it was all part of the plan. And that is my belief, that it is all part of the plan, and that they were supposed to come the way that they were supposed to come because there were lessons that you needed to learn and things that they needed to experience, whether now or as they grow. So that's so beautiful. Thank you.
I'm so blessed as well, like just to have like this extension of myself, even though my Kalia is, from Tonga, it's a first cousin. I had never met her. I had never met her up to this point because she had never come to America. I had never gone to Tonga. And so, and what's like kind of interesting for me is that it has helped me understand like how my dad grew up, where he grew up, who my extended family is. And I can have this incredible relationship with them that I never would have anyway. So it's for when it comes down to it, it's just been so awesome to feel like I've gained more family throughout this process than just a baby, right? I'm not saying just a baby, but like a beautiful child. But I've also inherited this incredible network of people that loved this child just as much. So
yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, so as I I wanted to do this a lot to get some more awareness about adoption. A lot of people have a lot of questions about how it works and kind of how you, anyway, but I've found that people are really nervous to ask me, and that it almost feels like they feel like it's a taboo subject to ask me, like, are your kids adopted? Which in my case is pretty obvious. They're both Black, and I and my husband are not. But they kind of like pull me aside and they're quiet about it, and it almost feels like they feel like it's a taboo subject for them to talk to me or ask me questions about adoption. And my opinion is that I'm totally free and open because I'm not ashamed of where my children came from. I'm not ashamed that they are children through adoption. And I was just wondering if you have had some of those similar experiences in people asking you and feeling like maybe it's a taboo subject to ask someone about adoption.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. Like people have asked, especially since they've kind of followed my journey on social media. But the thing is I put very like nothing of what was really going on in Tonga I just put my love for this child, right? Nobody knew that I had not had her in my custody, or a lot of things that I just told the story of. And so for me, I am completely open to talking about anything. I did that to protect my cousin because I knew that there was more going on, and I didn't want to shame her or make her look like somebody that she wasn't, because I didn't know the whole story. And so for me, when people ask me, I love telling, oh my goodness, yes, it was the hardest year of my life. Like hands down, like if I were to go back and say what was harder, heart surgery or adoption, 150% adoption. Like it is a whole different level. And it's because you're helpless in so many ways, and you want to be there and you want to show up and help and whatever. But at the end of the day, sometimes it's not even up to you. Like it's up to somebody else that's making a decision on your behalf, and you have to just trust that it's going to happen, and that's what's so scary about it. And anyway, so like for example, so I have my one son that has red hair. He's white. My husband's white, and I was at Costco the other day, and we were going through the checkout line, and I had my son and I had my daughter, who's very dark and very Polynesian. But then again, like you could see that she's kind of looks like me, right? And because I do have Polynesian features, but the clerk who was going through, and she said, are these your two kids? And I said, yeah, they're my kids. And she said, oh, they just look so different. And I couldn't help myself because I said, yeah, they have two different fathers. But like I died because I just thought I couldn't help it, but I'm like, and two different mothers. And she's like, oh, I said she's adopted, and the lady just started laughing, right? But like the thing is like I think that for me, when people ask me, I want to use some humor. I want to have fun with it. I want to let them know that I am completely open. It doesn't bother me. I understand if I had a closed adoption or I wasn't ready to tell my child if they were adopted. But the thing is like, it's part of our everyday conversation that it's going to be so normal to them that it's not like oh, you were adopted kind of a thing. It's, yeah, of course I'm adopted. I've known this my whole life. It's the conversation that we have open. So I know that for other parents, depending on how close the adoption is, could probably determine how willing they are to talk about it, because they don't want it to come back to their child by different means. But for me, I'm totally open, 150%. I just can't post on social media, nor will I, just for the privacy and love of my cousin that would be judged for some of those things. So, I mean, I don't mind this at all, because it's more providing a platform for somebody to know what to expect or what could possibly happen.
Lots of things, yes, that could possibly happen. What are some unique challenges that you feel like you face as an adopted family?
You know what? I think that's a good question. I have to really think about that, because I think for me, like just having a baby after so many years, right? My son was 8 years old by the time that we brought home this baby, and then brought home another one. And so I think that the age gap was a big thing for me, like going back to diapers and like, mom, 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 like all the time, it's like a whole different world. I just completely forget, right? You're in it, you understand. um, yeah, it's a whole different world. But I think some unique challenges are, I think for me, it's more the wondering of maybe how my children might feel or how they may feel accepted, because my daughter, she is half black, half white. My other daughter is fully Tongan. They still look like sisters. Like, that's a crazy thing, is they look like sisters. But there'll be some unique challenges with race, and I know that because I grew up with it. My dad is full Tongan. I saw what happens, and so I think that that's part of it, is helping them create that confidence within themselves, that they are so worthy of love and acceptance, no matter how the beginnings were.
Yeah.
And or what color their skin is, or who they decide to be, or what profession it is. I want them to, and I think that's a struggle for any parent, but I think that you have an additional weight when you're talking about somebody literally had to give you up for you to be here. And that's sometimes hard to reconcile, and to create that confidence in them.
Yeah. I've had some of those similar feelings myself. If you could give one piece of advice to someone who was starting their adoption process, what would you give them?
Follow your gut instinct. Like 150%, that has been my biggest guiding force. When you feel like something's wrong, or you feel like something's not clicking together or working, it's usually for a reason. I felt this uneasiness before I knew of everything that was happening in Tonga while I was not there. I felt that she was going to come home with me, my daughter. I just didn't know how. So throughout the process, you may become attached. You may come up against what I came up against, of resolving that this child may not come home with you. Or it might be the last hour that somebody decides that they want their baby back. They want their baby. They don't want to give it up for adoption. But I promise, like, as you just feel that gut instinct, whatever you may say it is, I say it's the spirit. But that gut instinct of, hey, whatever you need to do, if you feel pulled a certain direction, go with it, even if it doesn't seem like it makes total sense. Because I feel like that has saved me over and over and over. And it does also help heal you as well. So
yeah. And I had some of that too. With my daughter, my second, we had no idea she was coming, and we had to make a decision really fast if we were going to take her or not. And we were not at all in a position financially where we thought we could do it. But we felt so strongly that she was supposed to come home with us, and she was supposed to be ours. And so we said, okay, we're going to go for this. And it's been over a year. It's been about 1.5 years now. And, things are hard, but we're surviving, and we're making it through. And I truly believe that's such good advice, to go with your gut, go with those feelings that you just know deep down are real. And you hold on to those when those times look like there's nothing else to hold on to. You hold on to them.
and financially too, like kind of what you're saying is like, you know what, like if it's meant to work out and you're really doing everything that's possible that you can possibly do, something will open up. And I've seen it over and over and over with other people who have adopted, myself. Like, we're talking about, we spent like $130,000 on adoption this last year. Like, that's just nuts, right? Like, it's a lot of money. And I'm not saying that that's going to be you guys, trust me. But what I'm saying is, like, you just don't know. You don't know until you are there. And so understanding that if you're stopping yourself because of a financial reason, look and ask and open your mind to other opportunities, or at least like start, if you feel like you need to get started, do it. Like, and you know, I firmly believe the avenue of where you're going to find it or how it's going to work will open up. It may not make sense right now, but it may, and I do think it will. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents, because if someone told me that I'd be spending that much money on an adoption, on 2 adoptions, I would have cried. I would have been like, we're not starting this at all. We have our 1 child, we're good, you know. but it has worked out. We have been overly compensatedly blessed on the other side, to be able to make this all work.
Yeah. And like I said, if those children are supposed to be with who they're supposed to be with, ultimately nothing will stand in the way, and that they will make it to where they're supposed to make it. And thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story and some insight with us. I think it's such a good conversation that hasn't, in my experience, hasn't been talked about enough. That there's just not a lot of resources for people out there who are looking to adopt or wanting to know more information about it, and to be able to talk with people who have lived and been through these things, I think is such a, and to hear these incredible stories, it's so powerful. So thank you so much for being willing to share yours with us. And just to close, if there's anything else that you would like to share with people who are interested in starting the adoption process or want some more information about kind of what it entails, do you have any other anything else you'd like to share?
What I'll say is just number 1, I'd say if you can go with an agency. I know that this is just my own opinion, but like agencies truly are that like third party neutral ground, and it takes out a lot of emotion that you may get from, you know, interfacing with the birth parents. So I would say it is more expensive route, but what I totally believe that they really are some great mediators, and it could take out a lot of the extra like pain and confusion that might go with it. So and then also, if you're doing international adoption, one thing I'd say is you have to go through an agency, an approved agency, or I've seen so many cases where people go the wrong route and they just hire a lawyer. It's not like a domestic adoption. You cannot just hire a lawyer to do the process for you. They will deny it, and then you have to start all over with an agency, and you'll be paying double. So just to like save you some extra time, energy, effort, we were thankfully pushed to an adoption agency, and that was the route that we had to go. But along the way, I've heard of so many families that were affected by having a lawyer instead of the agency. So agencies are powerful, you guys. I know that it seems like it might be unnecessary money, but it absolutely brings peace of mind, because the paperwork, all the documents, everything that they're doing is being double, triple checked. And like I said, it brings that neutral ground for you, and really gives you confidence in the process. And you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be an expert. That's why you hire them to do it. So anyway, that's what I would say. Like agencies are amazing.
And I've never thought about that. I didn't have international adoption, so I'm not really aware of all the things that happen in an international adoption. But I just know when we had our agency, it was so nice for me to be able to be like, okay, this paperwork is exactly what it needs to be. I don't have to worry about it or try to figure out what I'm supposed to get in or what I'm supposed to do. They've color coded it basically for me, and I get to sign my name. I get to read it, make sure I like it, and sign my name on it. And that they, you know, it was really nice for us too, because they helped us find our children. And I know that wasn't the case with you, but that was really nice too, to help match us with our birth mom. So that is, I hadn't thought about that. So thank you so much for sharing that and giving that advice. And have a good day. Thank you so much for being here, and for all, for just being open and honest about your experiences.
Well, Thank you. I think this is such an awesome awareness that you're doing, and I totally support it. Just I think that there's so many people out there, and if you're one of them that is looking for a resource, feel free. You're welcome to reach out to me as well and ask questions if you're looking for international. I'd be more than happy to field any questions. So, and good luck you guys on your journey. This is exciting. Who knows? Shannon and I could possibly be on it again later. We have no idea, right?
You just don't. I know. I'm like, I think my family's done, but I've been really good about saying, I think it's done, because you just never know.
I know, seriously though, right?
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you. Hey, have a good one.
You too.